In January 2021, GameStop became the center of a short squeeze that drove its stock price up over 2,500%, taking over $22 billion from the hedge funds betting against it. But what if I told you that it could happen again in the next 90 days? Not with meme magic this time, but with Bitcoin. To see what GameStop could be up to, we go backstage with Simon Gierevich, the CEO of Metaplanet, whose Bitcoin strategy took his company up 3,000% in less than a year. Are the new cryptic moves from its CEO, Ryan Cohen, signaling a similar strategy? And if so, what might this mean for the original meme stock? Let's mine deep. GameStop sits on a $4.6 billion cash pile, a reserve built through shareholder dilution and unwavering belief that Ryan Cohen has a master plan. But cash is a melting ice cube in an inflationary world. Every year, GameStop's reserves lose value as inflation and M2 money expansion chip away 3 to 6% of the dollar's value per year. And while Cohen has stabilized the business sector, brick and mortar retail is in decline in the digital age. So what might GameStop do instead with its hard-won fiat? Enter Bitcoin. Bitcoin isn't just a speculative asset. It's the hardest, most finite asset ever created. Michael Saylor practically invented using Bitcoin as a treasury asset, not only by buying it with cash reserves, but by exploiting return-starved fixed income markets by raising billions with Bitcoin-backed corporate bonds. But now it's not just Saylor anymore. Companies across the spectrum are running the same playbook to even bigger effect. Metaplanet, another Bitcoin treasury company, saw its stock jump 3,000% in less than a year by simply copying Saylor's strategy. But why is Bitcoin the perfect synergy for GameStop? Because GameStop has a unique advantage that could amplify Bitcoin's effect even more dramatically. GameStop's stock is surrounded by anomalies, including a pattern of failures to deliver, FTDs, an abnormally high rate of dark pool activity, and a community of tens of thousands of shareholders who have written an entire library of due diligence on the company. Seriously, they might be the only group with more authors per capita than Bitcoiners. These are some of the most die-hard shareholders of any public company out there. And if Ryan Cohen takes a similar approach to GameStop's treasury strategy like Saylor did with MicroStrategy, it could open up GameStop to a brand new market of institutional investors as well. The timing couldn't be more perfect. New accounting rules make it easier for companies to hold Bitcoin on their balance sheets. America is contemplating a strategic reserve of their own, and inflation continues to chip away at the value of cash. But why should you care? Because the pieces of the puzzle are falling into place. Ryan Cohen, who has only followed one X account since 2021, GameStop itself, just followed both Bitcoin and Bitcoin Magazine. Thanks, Ryan. Maybe we'll do an interview in Bitcoin 2025. $2 billion Strive Asset Management recently sent a detailed shareholder letter outlining why GameStop should adopt Bitcoin as a treasury asset. Oh yeah, and Cohen recently met with Michael Saylor. I wonder what they talked about. With Q1 earnings around the corner, a treasury announcement would be perfectly timed. If GameStop puts some of its cash pile into Bitcoin, or goes even further by employing Saylor's strategy of a creative delusion, it could ignite a frenzy among short sellers scrambling to cover their positions. The same forces that once drove GameStop up 2,500% in 96 hours could now be amplified by the hardest asset on earth. If GameStop makes this move, it wouldn't just be history repeating. It would be history rewritten. Join me backstage at Bitcoin 2024 Nashville with Simon Garovich. How has that journey of orange filling been for the company?
It's been an incredible journey, although it's still relatively short. I was sharing earlier that I tried to convince our board back in 2015 to buy a Bitcoin. I started a hotel company. It was a Pan-Asian hotel company. And the most obvious thing was to accept Bitcoin. And that would be a great way for us to grow our Bitcoin stack. Unfortunately, it was the wrong time. And so it wasn't until about 5 years later during COVID when things were difficult for the hospitality industry. And that was just the perfect time to revisit. Convinced everyone that it made sense to dispose of our hotel assets and then do something different. And so we decided at that time to purchase Bitcoin and make that our stated strategy to own as much Bitcoin as possible, sort of now and into the future.
How do you structure that strategy? Like as a Bitcoin holder, you just want to put everything into Bitcoin.
Well, I think credit is due with MicroStrategy. Been following Michael Saylor now for the past 4 years, and they really have set a roadmap for corporations around the world to follow. I live in Japan. Our company is a Japanese listed company, and Japan is yield starved, and so people are looking for something interesting to invest in. The Japanese yen is at its lowest level in 34 years. Purchasing power is down. And so if you're an average Japanese person that likes to travel, likes to spend, but your yen doesn't go very far, you really want to do something with that. And so timing-wise, I think is great to have a strategy like this, to embrace a Bitcoin sort of only strategy in a country like Japan. Japan actually was one of the first places in the world to embrace Bitcoin. Sadly, that was around the time that Mt. Gox happened. And so a lot of people, I think, who bought Bitcoin on Mt. Gox decided to walk away from Bitcoin for a long time. Having said that, now there are a lot of sort of local communities of Bitcoin lovers, crypto lovers in general. We actually announced earlier today that we have signed the exclusive license for Bitcoin Magazine in Japan. And so that's really exciting for us because we think that through education, people can learn more about Bitcoin. And that's the role that we want to play in Japan, to help educate Japanese on the laurels of Bitcoin. And hopefully, 10% of them decide to buy our stock.
Over in Japan, do people, when they think of Bitcoin, they think of other cryptocurrencies, or is there like a direct, separation between the two?
So in Japan, people are generally, generalists. So they tend to buy all sorts of cryptocurrencies. But I think Bitcoin is incredibly special. There's no other asset like it. Japan deserves, I think, to have Bitcoin Magazine Japan be there, focus on Bitcoin itself as the asset to purchase, and don't really waste your time with the other stuff.